Hello and welcome back to Logical Magic Examining Esoterica. Hey guys, today I have a subject for you about executive functioning, which is actually a self-regulation issue. And we're talking a little bit about how to establish it if you were never taught these things, which is actually where that comes from. And so many people who did not have ideal childhoods did not learn the executive functions, which is self-regulation and self-management, that can lead to greater success in their professional and personal lives. However, don't despair if that got, taken out of your toolkit or was never placed there by dysfunction or disorder, which can also happen. People who are struggling with a variety of different disorders can also struggle with their ability to structure something in their lives in a productive fashion versus a punishing fashion. And so we're going to be talking a little bit about spirituality, some of the techniques that you can employ to improve your executive functions, which are key to your emotional regulation, but they're also key to achieving the goals that you set in your life. And your goals don't need to be about money and your profession. They are simply what you're trying to achieve to make your life better. Sometimes, in fact, people are striving to work less so that they can travel more, etc. And executive functioning is one of the things that can help you structure a life that will provide what your dreams are, what you're trying to achieve. And the other thing to kind of keep into consideration is don't allow other people to define your goals for you. Whatever your goals are, it's fine for you to have them. People confuse the idea of profession and purpose all the time. They're not interchangeable words. They're not interchangeable concepts. Your purpose in life is not always your profession. For instance, artists are frequently here to create, to find beauty in sometimes the chaos and destruction of a world with a lot of, turmoil within it. Joining me for this is Jacob Fluharty, who is somebody who has attention deficit disorder and so has to work with multiple structuring tools for executive functioning to be able to do the things that he needs to do. And he's been here many times before. He's a good friend of mine. Before I get to him, we're going to go over the housekeeping really quickly. You can find me at therisingmoon.com to book me for a tarot card reading or a life coaching session. In life coaching sessions, one of the things I do is help people develop a productive form of executive functioning, because so many trauma victims have a tendency to put a punishing one into place. And I talked about that in the self-discipline episode, where we have to learn a compassionate approach to self-discipline. Most people start out trying to compensate for poor executive functioning skills with basically self-punishment, like being very critical, being very punishing, very driven in what they're trying to achieve. And then you can also find me at Chromecast at The Rising Moon on YouTube, where the video versions of these interviews and these discussions are. And I have a Patreon where I'm teaching tarot in reverse. We do weekly reads, we do monthly reads. It's just kind of a fun community. I put some magic stuff up there for them sometimes too, as well. You can find Jacob at SouthernStyleReadings@gmail.com, but I think there might be some new stuff with that because he is restructuring his own life as he goes towards his own forms of executive functioning. So we're going to go over to Jacob. Jacob, how are you today?
I'm doing great, thanks.
And can you tell me where people can find you now for readings?
At the at the moment, no, you can still use the Southern Style Readings page on Facebook. It doesn't have much on there right now, but you can at least use it to send me a message, and the new stuff should be ready very, very soon.
And please keep in mind that one of the reasons that Jacob is an effective and like a really insightful tarot reader is that, much like myself, he goes towards a lot of scientific theory about the subconscious and what goes into our emotional foundation. And if you can find a reader who has a really firm background in psychology, the advice that they give you is going to help you improve your overall outcomes versus than just tell you what's going to happen, which there really, really is a room in our lives for predictive tarot. But most people would like to get to the point where they feel so good day after day that they don't dread what's coming up, or they're not feeling like they're missing something. So they're asking what's coming up. Instead, they're saying, what can I do to make the things I want to happen manifest in my life? That brings us to today's subject. So executive functioning, what's your understanding of it, Jacob?
I have a lot of thoughts about it. Like you referenced, as someone who has ADD and bipolar, it's the double whammy of executive dysfunction, come to find out. So did a little refresher on, my cognitive psych before we got together, and do. And yeah, so basically, it's just like you talked about earlier. It's basically like how your mind, you know, structures things, and like does deals with working memory, and um, it's kind of how you kind of put the world together, and um, achieve the goals that you have, or like the things that you have to do throughout the day. My executive functioning is a little slow today, but um,
You got a lot going on. You've got a lot going on. And
yeah.
I also have multiple disorders. I have a form of OCD that is related to trauma. I have complex post-traumatic stress disorder. I have general anxiety disorder. I have an eating disorder that I don't talk about because it's really been resolved for many, many years. If you have extra challenges, guess what? All you have to do is find your particular structure to put together your routine, and don't compare yourself to other people. If you have challenges, it doesn't mean that you can't achieve what you want to achieve. It just means that you have to be honest with yourself about the challenges that come with it. Jacob can be a little scattered, which is comes along with the ADHD. I have OCD, which means I can do way too much. If some is good, more is better. That is what part of the soul of OCD. And in fact, I'm sitting here with an arm brace on because I've had weightlifter's elbow because I pushed myself too hard and added in different exercises. What you can't see is also a strain in one of my metacarpals because same deal. I was doing one-legged deadlifts and I decided to do a set of 30, which even now I recognize was like, well, that was probably too much. And it's healing. But that's one of the challenges that I face with OCD, which is that I have to self-regulate my limits a great many times. And I'm very good about it in everything that isn't healthy. Meaning my biggest problem is that something like working out is something that I will try and do too much of because my brain has a hard time marrying the idea that you can do something that is healthy so much that it is to your detriment, witnessing my arm and the fact that I'm a little limpy because I have trouble recognizing when it is time to stop and that more is not always better. And so I have to put into place very firm guidelines around what I will do, meaning that until I'm healed, I can't add in new exercises. Now, is this really like a problem for me? Yes, yes, it is. With obsessive compulsive disorder that is related to trauma, I also have a tendency to try and perfect everything. And so enough is never enough for me. I'm always pushing myself. I'm in a competition with myself. I have to be very cognizant of that in order to put together a good and functional executive functioning toolkit, or a guideline is basically what we're talking about. And so I have to watch myself almost from a remove and evaluate, are you doing too much there? Are you doing too much there? Have you eaten? Don't get obsessed with numbers on a scale. And I'm very fit, and I feel like it's like I'm not bragging. It's just a genetic thing. I come from very robust Scottish people on one side, and it's one of my genetic traits that I'm very, very grateful for. But it does mean that sometimes I have trouble recognizing my own limitations. That maybe I shouldn't be doing
Mhm.
that. Maybe I shouldn't be like I talked a lot about hiking, which I can't do in the summer because I'm so very fair skinned. But as I was doing it in the in the winter and in the spring and in the fall, one of the things I had to watch is that I have a tendency, because it's healthy, because it's good for me, because being in nature is good for my anxiety disorder. I had a tendency to go from doing a 3-hour hike to a 4-hour hike to a 7-hour hike, and I
Mhm.
was exhausted. I was absolutely exhausted. So it was actually detrimental to my health by the time I caught what I was doing. And that's one of the things that you have to superimpose structure if you didn't learn it. And that is part of executive functioning, but you can learn it. And if you didn't learn it, please understand that awareness of your challenges is one of the first things that you want to achieve. And it's not about disliking yourself. Do I love having obsessive compulsive disorder? No, I don't love having it, but there's a lot worse afflictions, and I have it at such a low level that I can manage it with awareness versus medication. everything that is wrong with me, I
Mm.
am the luckiest person because it comes in at the lowest level, barely disordered, and I am able to, with logic, reason, and fortitude sometimes, apply healthy techniques to the things that might otherwise hold me back, and it allows me to achieve in a way that is kind of interchangeable with someone who didn't have the same challenges. Now, I was much older. I wasn't a kid. I wasn't 21 years old when I was able to do the things that I'm able to do now. I had to overcome damage, understand what it did to me, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So that is part of the process as well. If you have been having trouble achieving your goals, you need to examine what your executive functioning or self-regulation toolkit or template is and try to make the appropriate adjustments for your personal challenges. So there is no one size fit all in this. Jacob, can you tell me some of the things? Because you and I go back. He's a very busy person. And I forgot to remind him yesterday about this appointment, which I would usually do because I know how many things he has going on. I didn't. As a result, we're starting a little bit late. And it's because he has so much going on. What do you do to help remind you? Because I have hyper focus where I do too much, and you have trouble maintaining focus, which is part of willpower. Willpower is part of what
Mhm.
allows you to succeed. Willpower is the integral part of executive functioning. Can you tell me some of your methods to overcome bipolar disorder, and you have ADHD as well?
I mean, I try to follow, what is, excuse me, very commonly, prescribed to everybody. Um, utilize technology a lot more now than I used to. I used to be very anti, digitizing my life, but there are just way too many resources out there that are good that can be taken advantage of. So I've started integrating a lot more of that into my life. My current favorite right now is it's called Motion. It's a calendar. Um, I guess you call it an app, but it's a website and it's an app, and it basically it uses AI to kind of make your schedule for you.
Mm,
And so you put in like your schedule, like the static tasks that are coming, and then you can enter in projects that you have that need to be completed, and then it will move those projects around based on the static things you have going on in your life. So that's been kind of helpful. Um, that's been helpful because it allows you to break things up, and then for me, like if I'm not looking at something, I don't it's not really there anymore. My what do you call it? I never really object permanence, I guess, never really solidified. And so I if I don't have it written down in front of me all the time, then I just forget that it exists. So having my tasks not be on like a to-do list per se, that is, somewhere else. It's always on my calendar that I look at all the time and is like in front of me most of the time. That's really been helpful for me. You That's my big one right now. Motion has been kind of a lifesaver here recently. The trick is, setting it up, and that is for me, the get up and go is always the hardest. Is I have tools available, but I need to just use them. Um, and then that goes into reminding myself that it's action that burns motivation, not the other way around. And sometimes you have to get the ball rolling before it can actually go down the hill, those kinds of things. But even as something as simple as like a sticky note is system is really helpful for a lot of people. Just cover your living space or your workspace with post-it notes that can be just as effective. um, but for me, yeah, technology. I'm utilizing technology a lot more than I have in the past.
Okay, this is one thing to remember, and you used a word that like challenges. What we have to remember is that everybody has their own unique challenges, and identifying them first. If you're not good at showing up on time, then maybe what you want to do is have a redundant system of reminders. Like right before you go to bed, maybe you want to email yourself within the subject line what you need to do, pay the electric, whatever it might be. So the first thing that you see in the morning is a reminder from yourself, something that you, if you wake up every morning, like most people, you check your schedule or you check your email or you check your texts. What you want to do is get into a system where you remind yourself in addition to scheduling events through a computer, because not everybody has the same access to technology. And if you don't, please don't be afraid to put things like charts on the wall about a checklist that you go through in the morning and at night. That is one of, and please remember that most people who did not learn executive functioning did so either because they have a disorder or they came from a dysfunctional setting. And it is part of the reason that generational poverty exists from generational trauma, because good executive functioning skills are not conveyed in homes that are very dysfunctional. But you can acquire those skills through study and through routine. Your routines and awareness, marrying those two together, are two of the things that will give you enough awareness to understand your challenges and begin to structure a routine that will help you overcome them. And we always want to be as kind and compassionate to ourselves, but sometimes you have to be like, okay, that's enough of that, up and get going. I sometimes have to do that to myself, and you can use very good, like, and kind and loving language with yourself as you're like, that is enough of that, put that down. I do have OCD. And so sometimes, like, it can surprise clients that when I'm thinking, I'll sit here and I'll shuffle my cards. And if I catch myself, I put it down. But that is one of the examples of how OCD can be perceived in me by other people. And it really is awareness of, it's like, if I'll see a client glance, I know to put it down, because it's like, okay, that's distracting them. It may be something that helps me focus, but it's distracting them. And it's an awareness of, I am channeling too much energy into a compulsive activity, and it will eventually burn me out. And so that is part of the reason that I stop myself from doing it. Even though it can be a very soothing ASMR sound, it's taking up too much of my energy. I can be very kind to myself about that, because it's a weird habit, but I understand where it came from. I lived in a terrifying household, and it was one of the ways that I learned to soothe my own anxiety, was to constantly be trying to do things to make things better, or trying to be very hyper aware, which is part of what that shuffling thing is as well. Once you understand the challenges that you face, you're halfway there to beginning to solve them. Spirituality holds a place in this. When we talk about a meditative practice being one of the things that can really and truly help, and I did a podcast about how to meditate with anxiety and depression. And I'm begging you to hear me. If you just heard the meditation, you're like, that's not for me, it doesn't work for me. You just don't know how yet. And it is crucial to being able to get your mind to pause in order for you to be able to evaluate what you're feeling, what you're doing, why you're doing it, what you need to do differently. And that's a four-step thing, with being able to pause your mind to be able to evaluate where you are and what you're trying to do. And sometimes when you're really scattered or overwhelmed, as people with anxiety disorders might be, when you draw that breath in, when you're like, okay, I'm putting this on pause, I'm clearing my head. When you learn how to meditate, you then have the ability to clear your mind at will, which is one of the best focus tools that you can find. And when you hear about meditating, please stop thinking about a half hour of your day, 2 hours out of your day, sitting down and like levitating. It needs to be as long as you want it to be. It can be a minute long, it can be 2 minutes long, it can be 5 minutes long, it can be 30 seconds of you just focusing on breathing in and out, which is you controlling where your thoughts are going. It is actually bringing your thoughts into focus so that you can then let them go. And it is very, very key to learning how to respond and not react. And respond is not what you say to another person, although it can be. It is responding to yourself with the appropriate self-care to get the best results out of the actions that you are undertaking. And that's executive functioning. Is you structure the actions and the activities and the routines that you are undertaking to be able to yield the results that you want. And it's easiest to see in professional settings, but you can do it in all other areas. I had to make a deal with myself around this working out thing. By the way, I'm on a rest for a week. It is making me climb the walls. I have to be very, very aware of, hey, listen, Be very, like, remind yourself to be patient. You're not getting the amount of exercise that you need, that you're used to. And so you have to, if anything's going wrong, choose patience because you don't have your coping tool in place because you hurt yourself. Because I did it to myself. The awareness of that is actually part of what makes me able to inhabit a patient energy. The ability to meditate, which was difficult for me. It's very difficult for people with complex post-traumatic stress disorder to relax enough to not be looking forward, because we live in a very fearful place when we've been badly traumatized enough to think every next moment will be traumatic, which is part of what happens with PTSD and CPTSD. And learning to hit that pause button to be like, I'm in the here and the now. I am focusing on the details around me can put an end to triggers. It can also put an end to fear and anxiety. If it doesn't put an end to it, it can be a powerful tool in basically stopping it at will, being able to have more control over it, not spinning out and losing your energy and your focus and your drive in a direction that does not benefit you. When you learn more executive functioning tools, what you are really learning is to harness all the personal energy that you have to achieve what you are trying to achieve. And it does not need to be professional, as I said before. It does not have to be about work. It can be about happiness. It can be about wellness. It can be about eating properly. One of the things that I had to teach myself, and I had to create the method because like it didn't exist, was to stop triggers. I had to learn how to respond to it. Drink something, eat something that's very well balanced, and get out and touch the ground if at all possible. If I can't do that, focus on 3D aspects so that I don't have any issues with dissociation. Where like I was so badly terrorized as a child that I would like basically lose my footing in the 3D, and my brain would retreat into this horrified space where it was almost like watching myself from a distance. That's a bit what like dissociation feels like to me. I had to put together a method to stop that. When I feel that engine revving up, I'm going to be like, I just know how to turn that key off so that we don't get this car going anywhere. And this is how I do it. By evaluating, are you triggered? What's going on? This is what you do. And it cannot, do I reach out for support? No, because I don't, because I had to design this myself. And so having somebody else participate in a method then means that you're very dependent on them. And so I really believe in people developing their independent methods. So that's why it's a kind of a good idea not to have other people except professionals participate in your process, because ideally the process that you put together is very personally designed for your goals and to work with what your particular challenges are, which there are guidelines that they will fall under, but everybody, it manifests in a different way for different people. There we go. So sorry, I was just declining a call, guys. I wanted to make sure it wasn't going to ring and scare the crap out of everybody. Jacob, thoughts on this?
I mean, I, I, I personally, I guess, like the accountability aspect of like doing things with like having people being involved in my processes or what have you. Um, yeah, I think about like how I utilize like um, body doubling is something that I'm a huge fan of,
I'm
and it
not
allows
familiar
me
with
to
that. What
get.
is it? What is it?
Oh, gotcha. So body doubling is basically you perform an action with somebody else in the room with you. So like let's say, for example, I need to get my apartment clean right now. And which is, I feel like I say that every time we're together. Sorry, everyone who listens, like it must, what you must think of me. But so I need to get that done. So basically, I would have somebody come over and like sit with me more or less, and just they don't do anything, they don't participate in the process. They are just there to it creates this accountability there. It injects like a social aspect to it, which kind of like lessens um, the chore feeling, as it were.
Question.
And
Do they function as an
yeah,
anchor? Do they function as an anchoring point as well for your focus?
I do believe that that is part of it as well. Yeah, it allows you to not, you are less likely to like get on your phone or do whatever because they are like a physical representation of what is supposed to be going on. Yeah, I think that's plays a part of it as well. People often do it in like co-working situations where, like, let's say you join a study group and you guys are together and you're not necessarily interacting with each other, but you're both there for a common purpose. And you will, just that alone allows both people to be more focused on what's happening. Um, yeah, so I mean, I agree with you. Like every person's, methods are personal and different. But for someone like me, I like having people involved in my process.
But
Otherwise,
challenges,
I'm much more successful.
that's a good point. You have different challenges, so different methods will work for you. So that's
Hmm. Right, right.
didn't mean to cut you off. Please continue.
No, yeah, you're good. So yeah, I mean, body doubling has been super. Well, let me rephrase that. Is super helpful when I utilize it effectively. Um, uh Train of thought ran away from me, sorry. But yeah, where were we? Mm-mm.
Okay, so here's one of the ways to break down the concept of executive functioning. And just like cut me off, dude, if your thought comes back, I'm just coming in with a
Yeah,
lifesaver on
yeah,
that
go
because
for it.
me too.
Yeah,
When
go for
there's
it.
any pressure and you're like, I've just lost my thought, your entire mind, like the good form of pausing your mind comes through meditation. The bad form comes through like, I can't think what I was just thinking. And that can be very disconcerting and discombobulating. So, executive functioning is energy management or time management for energy allocation to achieve your goals. That is one of the ways that you want to look at it, is that you really are trying to find the structure that will allow you to manage the energy that either benefits you or challenges you in a way that is productive and allows you to achieve the goals that you are trying to set for yourself, whatever they may be, like cleaning your apartment. And as soon as you started talking about body doubling, which I've never heard of because I don't have the same challenges, and so it's not something that I've done a ton of research into, it makes perfect sense to me. It's something that could help keep you on track as well, because I know one of the difficulties with ADHD is that your mind will go off in 17 different directions, and sometimes you only pursue one, but then you get distracted by number 9 and you go off with that, and one's over there like, I'm halfway done.
Yeah.
And so having somebody there as an anchoring point, because anchoring is part of what I'm talking about with stopping triggers. That process I talked about with touching the ground, taking stock of your 3D, you're really noticing the details of thing. That is called an anchoring technique. When you have challenged executive
Hmm.
functioning, you need to find your anchoring techniques as well, particularly if your challenge pertains to focus. Sir, back to you. Some other things that you do.
um yes, other things that I do. They say that exercise is really good. I'm bad at that. I don't ever really do that. The walks with the dog are about as far as that exercise goes for me nowadays. The one that I'm working on really hard right now is like introducing structure and like setting myself to a routine every day. And now that I'm leaving the restaurant game, that I should be able to do that a lot more effectively, because now my time is my time. Now that the type of work I'm doing is on my own schedule. So along with that is sleep. Sleep is very important. Obviously, not just adequate sleep, but consistent sleep, I guess is the way I want to say it. Being sure that you're doing it at the same time every day. Routine setting, I think that a lot of my issue has been just the extreme variability of my work schedule. Has been very, it's difficult to set any sort of routine whatsoever. But that is about to not be an issue anymore. So I've set my life up in blocks. Yeah, in the blocks. And so I know that this block is for this block is for this block is for this. And the trick will be not letting them bleed over, I guess, more than anything. Um, because once I do get going on something, the hyper fixation kicks in sometimes, and so you can go too far overboard with sticking to something, or time management issues. But is well, I come to find out as I was doing reading for this, one of the like hallmark executive dysfunctions is time management, because like, especially with people with ADD, it's like your ability to estimate how long a task takes is kind of thrown off. So like your time management is just like it's more so like like a misestimation of how long things are going to take. And so that makes complete sense to me, because like okay, I have, instead of being like a normal person, knowing that okay, I have an hour until I have to be on a call. Um, then in my head, I'm like, okay, well, it takes me this long to do this, and this long to do this, and this long to do this. So I set it all up, but then the task B takes way longer than I anticipated, and it just throws the entire system away. Um, and then you run off on tangents like that, which take you away from what you were talking about. But yeah, so structuring is my goal of choice right now, is to set a schedule, stick to it, because that consistency is very helpful. It helps, especially for someone like me who has working memory issues. It allows you to solidify things a lot easier in your brain, and therefore like help you with memory tasks and those sorts of things.
So that's fascinating to me because Jacob is illustrating the fact that your challenges will determine the toolkit, the routines, and the methods and the means that you need to put together for your own ability to overcome any executive dysfunction so that you can achieve this executive function. So, executive function, basically to just bumper sticker it is how to get your poop in a group. That is executive functioning, is how to get your poop in a group, get your crap all together so you can get the stuff done that you need to. But it's going to differ from person to person. And one of the things that Jacob was just talking about is the opposite of what I need to do, because I have OCD, which is that I will do something. Now, I don't have time management problems, but I will overcommit my energy to things that I have to be very aware of breaking routines. Not doing the same thing over and over again, not eating the same things over and over again, that I need to actively choose to do something different. Sometimes it's, what type of beverage I have in the morning. I actively have to seek out pattern disruption so that I don't do the same things over and over again. And why is that bad if I'm getting everything done? Because it becomes a very rigid mindset. And then if something comes along and disrupts your routine, like a lot of people with CPTSD, I have a form of neurodivergence that can be resolved through treatment and through the ability to understand it from a self viewpoint. That's why it's not considered a true form of neurodivergence, is it is something that can be resolved with treatment and with the application of different forms of behaviorism. Usually it depends on different people. So the thing that you have to do to manage to get your own, get your poop in a group executive functioning is the opposite of what I need to do. So the first part is, I would say, learning how to do that pause thing through a form of learning how to breathe in and breathe out. Look at it as breathing techniques if you have bad associations with the idea of meditation. The idea of meditating is that you stop and center within a present moment, and the only thing that you're focusing on is your breath going in and out. And you learn to have your brain, even though thoughts may be going on in there, you don't invest in them, you're not attached to them. I had to learn that it's just a feeling, it will pass, when I started to have any emotional overwhelm, because self regulation issues are being overwhelmed by threatening emotions is part of CPTSD. And I really had to learn to respond to a feeling of fear or anxiety or anger or impatience with, it's just a feeling, it will pass. Because that is true. Absolutely everything that you feel is temporary. You are not stuck in a permanent state. And that if you start approaching negative impulses or energies or emotions as it is just a feeling, it will pass, then you're less likely to invest too much of your energy in it and then have a regulation issue. Because again, at the very heart of this, executive functioning is actually self-regulation. And so if you have any
Mhm.
self-regulation or regulatory issues within, which a lot of people with trauma or disorders do, the first thing to do is to recognize what they are, to begin putting together the methods that will work for you. And they have to be your friends, they have to be things that are kind to you. I don't mean your friends are involved, I mean they have to be things that are self-supporting, self-compassionate, and self-encouraging. If you go towards things that are punishing, and that is one of the things that I'm actually currently working with several people on, is that they learned a form of executive functioning, but it was very self-punishing, where they like learned to talk to themselves like very like get your butt up off this like they really were not kind to themselves. And it got a lot of stuff done, but it feels like a very empty pursuit for them because they had to learn how to like you weren't ever bullying yourself into your ability to have willpower. If you have put together an executive functioning toolkit that speaks to yourself unkindly, judges you unkindly, is hypercritical, please understand that is not actually what has allowed you to achieve the things that you have achieved. It is simply where you chose to start focusing your willpower. And you can choose to focus your willpower in a different manner with a different script, with a different emphasis, so that you can be happy while you're getting your stuff done. You can be happy, you can be like self-congratulatory, you can be self-loving. And why do we want to do those things? So you can be more peaceful, so that you can be more passionate about things that are good, so that you don't live your life walking on eggshells within, so that you can celebrate your existence even if it's not perfect. I go into all the crap that happened to me as a kid, not because I'm still a wreck today, but because people have to understand that these experiences can do something to a person, but that your understanding and your ability to embrace the idea that yes, it sucks to have these challenges, nobody would choose it, but there's a lot of worse stuff out there. And I am so fortunate and so blessed in so many different ways, including being bright enough to be able to recognize, because none of this came from me from a therapist. It was really understanding that it's like, okay, I'm going to have to do this. So how do I do it? Because I am a problem solver extraordinaire. I genuinely like one of the things that I really will give myself credit for is I'm a resourceful person. And that was part of the resourcefulness of recognizing, well, I have this and I have that and I have the other thing. I have so many different things at once that the therapeutic community is a little bit challenged by it, but oh, thank goodness it's at a very low level. How do I solve this problem? How do I become the mother of invention in my own life to structure something that is kind to me? So that, and why do you want to be kind to yourself as well from a different perspective? If you are kind to yourself, you will not accept relationships with people who are not kind to you. And it is one of the problems that people who have put together functional existences after coming out of dysfunction struggle with, because they learn that self-commanding technique as the way to get things done. They are not very kind to themselves within. And so they allow people into their lives, friendships, romantic relationships, sometimes toxic family members, to be very unkind to them because their internal world's not so great. So if you learn how to be kinder to yourself, you develop better boundaries. And better boundaries are key to executive functioning as well, because you have to have good boundaries in order to achieve what you really need to. And again, every time I say the word achievement, I need you to start Xing out the word career, money, or job. That it can be part of your focus, but too many people equate it with that. Executive is a professional term, but it really is about being the executive officer within your own head to achieve whatever it might be. It could be creating a great work of art or learning to surf. It could be so many different things. If you master executive functioning tailored to your particular challenges, then what will happen is that you live a happier, healthier life. And guess what happens to disordered thinking as well? The impact of it becomes less and less and less. I've almost entirely resolved CPTSD triggers through the method that like I said, I designed it myself. Was it based on some theory and science? Oh my God, yes. I did so much research. Um, but it's very tailored to me. And everybody has the ability to do that if they start learning to view it that way. What I see sometimes in social media is people like simplifying the idea of self-love to be you're perfect just as you are. You do not need to be perfect to be lovable. You do not need to tell yourself you are perfect. And why do you not want to tell yourself you're perfect? Because most of us need to grow and change, which involves alteration, which involves growth and expansion. And so if you're perfect, why would you grow and expand? You don't need to be perfect. Perfect is not the thing. Don't chase perfection. It will always get away from you because none of us can achieve it. Tell yourself, I am perfectly lovable as I am, even with my challenges. And if you believe yourself to be lovable, if you treat yourself lovingly, then the challenges that you face, you quit resenting them and feeling afflicted by them or feeling victimized. And instead, you look at it as, believe in me, I can take that out. Sure, it's a little bit of a challenge, but I believe in my own strength. I've met me. I can do anything and I can get over anything. If you learn how to be kind to yourself, everything that you achieve, it may not be that you achieve a great deal more, but your happiness, your peace, and your joy in simply being alive will go up and up and up. So, Jacob, more thoughts on this?
Um, so many thoughts. I'm just going through my notes here that I had to talk about. You know, I talk often about how we keep talking about meditation, but I do want to like jump on that train because it's like I hate it personally, because of the inattention, or the inability to focus, or all that. But it really is a worthwhile thing to do, and I want to just make that kind of speak, um throw my check mark onto that as well. Like, it's worth doing. It's something that is not easy for me to do, but it does have its effectiveness, and for no other reason than it allows you to be more present inside of your body, which I think, if anyone listening is has any sort of like mood dysregulation, or especially people like that, like I do, it is super helpful in helping you be aware of your body in a way that allows you to regulate your mood a little bit better. So that's one thing I have written down here that I wanted to keep with it. It's okay. I mean, they've been doing a lot of research recently that talks about how we have this thing called neuroplasticity, which is
Neuroplasticity, yeah, it's
basically just a
awesome.
fancy way of saying your brain. Yes, neuroplasticity. But yeah, it's just saying that your brain is able to change and adapt, and you are able to restructure it in a way. And excuse me. And by doing something consistently, you are able to basically train yourself to you know think differently, and
You
like
can reprogram
perform
yourself.
tasks better. Yeah,
Reprogram.
basically. Yeah, more.
Uh-huh.
So, I suck at it, but, like you said, it doesn't even have to be like a 15-30 minute, deal. I think that, the, you know, the common misconception of what, what it is as a practice, has just gotten out of control. And so, everyone thinks it's, that 30 minutes of, sitting cross-legged on the floor, when it doesn't have to be that, So, find a way that works for you, and it can be super helpful.
Here is a tool, by the way, if you really are, because like like I'll look at people and I always know the answer when I'm like, what's your meditation practice like? And like I can practically see in the cards are like, oh, they would rather lop off their own foot. It's because the
Hmm.
approach to meditation is so it's stillness and not, hey guys, if that doesn't work for you, sit down in front of a painting or a picture or a tree or a pond that you like and look at it. Just sit there and look at it. Well, notice all the details. It does not, you can meditate with your eyes open. It's called fixed point meditation. There are different
Hmm. Hmm.
forms of meditation. One of them really is open-eyed meditation is a thing. And I used to do it when I was working out all the time, but we've already covered how like I can actually just beat the living crap out of myself because I'll work out too much. Like it's just I don't know why. It just is something that has always helped me feel grounded and it eases anxiety. Now, since I don't meditate while working out any longer, and instead I really do meditate, I'm able to achieve that feeling of anxiety reduction, which allows me to think clearly in any set of circumstances, um, by will. Once you master the ability just to breathe and to calm down and to stop the racing hamster on the wheel in your head, then what it gives back to you is your ability to have greater perspective and to focus your energy and to decide what your next action is to achieve your goals. Meditation does not, please stop thinking of it in this very Dalai Lama on the side of the mountains and simply think of it as it's my way to hit a pause button. Meditating is pausing
Hmm.
so that you will be able to reflect on what is really going on and what you can next do, which is part of the executive functioning toolkit concept. I
Hmm.
do. It really is, and I can give you an example of the type of stuff that like can be triggering for me. The other day, I started to log into my bank account, and they had added two-step verification out of nowhere. It had not like it's. I've been logging into that site for like 3 years, and out of nowhere, it had a different prompt, which is because I didn't have enough food as a child. I didn't have a water heater for 2 years. I like deprivation can be terrifying for me because I really did have a life that like physical survival could be very, very difficult. At one point, I was like eating popcorn for 2 weeks. Thank you. That's where my eating disorder came from. But I understand that part. What we are always trying to do is be aware of the root issue. And I'm very safe now. I always figure stuff out. I know that part about myself, and I sometimes have to remind myself. So that comes up, and that can be typically triggering because if you don't have money, you're not safe. I had money, I just wasn't sure I could get to it at that moment. Followed the prompts, which CPTSD, confusion can be very triggering. And I have a visual processing problem when triggered. And so I have to be aware of that. And I had to stop and read everything very carefully and just choose to do that. The very next thing that happened was I went to PayPal, and the buggers had also changed their interface. So back to back money issues, which can be very triggering for me, but I did fine with it because I've been doing all of this work of like just slow down, pause, and if I'm really triggered, I stop doing what I'm doing until I'm better. And it worked, and it was absolutely fine. And is that stuff coincidental? I do not believe it is. I think my guides really structure things in a way to be like, we're going to hit her with back to back and show her progress. And I had to learn how to celebrate the fact that it's like I'm 90% better, 95% better, 98% better, instead of being like, damn it, still 5% missing. I had to learn how to look at the glass of my own disordered thinking and my own application of technique in the positive thing and learn to celebrate I'm getting better. I can have great resentment issues around the idea of like, why did I get stuck with this? But I'm also very, very good at looking at the world around me and seeing people who are like they have all of their own struggles, and some of them are so much greater than mine, and that I am so very, very fortunate, even with the background that I have, because I also came from parents who were intelligent enough and very academic, and a bunch of other things that taught me to learn how to read, so that I was always interested in learning new things. And that has been crucial. That has been the key in understanding how to overcome my own challenges, again, without like professional help around it. Um, not at least certainly not much. Remember that your starting point is not an issue of the burdens you bear, but rather the material that you're trying to organize into a shape that works for you. And it doesn't need to look like somebody else's shape. Jacob and I have different shapes on this one, but what he's describing works really, really well for him. And even though it's the antithesis of what helps me, he needs routine. I need to be aware of like you're doing too much of the same thing and you always start increasing. I always have to be aware of that. I had to make a rule about how often I was allowed to hike. Like, I have to be a little bit of a like, I have to be my own manager. I have to be my own CEO. I am my own chief executive officer of my energy and what I'm committing it to. And that's another part of the idea of executive functioning and mastering any form of self-regulation. And we always want to go towards positive and affirming self-regulation, because that way it doesn't perpetuate a poor relationship to self, which then allows a poor relationship to others. A poor relationship to self is one of the things that is almost a gateway drug of sorts for abusive relationships, because if you don't treat yourself properly in your head, you're very unlikely to call the people out around you for doing it as well. And so it benefits literally every area of your life when you learn to take a compassionate approach to your challenges and know that you can improve anything. You may not ever end up being like, a billionaire, but who needs to be realistically? Who needs to be? You can improve your life. You can improve your life by mastering your own regulatory issues with a compassionate eye towards your own challenges. Jacob, anything else from your research that you did for this one?
Yes. What else did we want to talk about today? Um, oh, just had her. Yeah, so there's the executive dysfunctions. So, I wanted to talk about, see if you heard about this. I just learned about it myself. This thing called the Pomodoro technique. Are you familiar with this as a
I'm not.
as,
What
as a
is
tool? Okay. Oh my gosh. Okay. So I was looking at basically like time management or task management skills because that's one of the things that I struggle with the most. And so it's this technique that you take whatever it is that you need to do. This works for any kind of task, and you set an interval. Most commonly, it's like 20, 25 minutes, somewhere around that ballpark, but it can be any number that you want, as long as it's a small, like, I think it's supposed to be less than 30, more than 10, less than 30, something like that. Anywho, so you set a timer and you perform the task for that set amount of time. And then when the timer goes off, you take like a 5 minute break. You can go do something else that's not related to the task, and then you go back to the task for another Pomodoro, as they call it, and then you take another 5 minute break, and then after a set number of Pomodoros, like usually five, I think is a general baseline, you take an extended, like maybe 30-minute break where you step away from the task and do something else. And I thought that was fascinating,
that is awesome.
and yeah, apparently it's shown in both like anecdotal and like clinical research to be very effective. And it makes sense because all it's doing basically is what they call chunking, which is exactly what it sounds like. It's taking something like a task and breaking it into smaller parts so that you are able to like digest it easier. For people like me who have what do they call it, task paralysis. It allows you to take something that feels very daunting and like unattainable, and breaks it into smaller bits so that you are able to get through it. Um, I've started chunking a little bit recently, and it's, I haven't really done it enough to talk about its effectiveness. But I mean, I know it's effective because the research says it is. But I want to try this new Pomodoro technique, and I think I might start today and kind of see how it goes. And yeah, it's exciting. I'm very excited to find something new and to give it a go.
That what a cool technique. It is very similar to something that I tell people who are dealing with overwhelm issues, particularly because remember, with that's basically cutting something up into bite-sized chunks, which is something that, like, again, executive functioning is instilled in people during their formative experience. If you did not have good executive functioning instilled in you, you can acquire it. But one of the techniques is basically cutting things into smaller pieces to make it less overwhelming, self-regulatory issues being a cousin of emotional regulation issues. And it would be one of the ways that you could manage emotional regulation. What I help clients with a lot is they get overwhelmed with their environment because depression and anxiety and ADHD and all the other things that people come and talk to me about have a tendency to, like, things can pile up because people really
Mhm.
they get overwhelmed with how they will feel. We talked a little bit about this, how avoidance and procrastination is actually an emotional regulation issue. You dread how something is going to make you feel, so you put it off, you put it off, you put it off. If you put a cap on it, you will not overwhelm yourself. You will not do what I do, which is I overcommit my energy and work till I'm exhausted and then wonder why I'm sad. So you lose all of your life energy leaping up a mountain trying to prove something to God knows who. Like, let yourself rest. Rest is not evil. I have to have this dialogue with myself. I have to have this dialogue with myself constantly about how the things that are good for me are not lazy, they're not non-productive. I had hypercritical parents, and so I learned to be incredibly critical of myself. And I had to learn how to stop that without being critical of myself. And one of the ways to do that is I frequently do. I'm going to work for 1 hour, and it doesn't matter if I'm done. At the end of it, I will get up and walk away. No one's dying on a table here. I can always revisit this. So it is something I'm already applying, but I love that there's an actual, like they've developed a method for it that goes beyond that, that has multiple structures and multiple tiers in it, because that would allow people to get things done. And that is like the
Yeah,
thing.
who knew?
Go ahead.
I can say, yeah, who knew something good that came out of the '80s was this Italian psychologist and his little Pomodoro technique.
That is absolutely, like, I think that is one of the coolest things. So remember, executive functioning is key to achievement of goals, but goals are not synonymous with work. Goals are what you are trying to achieve. And many of us are trying to achieve a better state of emotional wellness and happiness, so that no matter what's going on in your external world, your internal world is your friend, and you feel good about your life and you feel hopeful about the future. Because that is actually what happens when you improve your internal world, is you don't worry so much about things going wrong, because you're happy overall, and you don't expect life to be perfect. You don't expect the world outside to never have variance, to never have disruptions in it, because you know how to claim your calm. And that is what meditation is doing. It's claiming your calm, finding your
Mm.
ability to be calm and to be focused and to have good perspective and good proportion at responses, which is part of healing emotional regulation issues. And everything relates back to self regulation. And it's okay to be starting from zero. You don't have to do it all in a day. Small improvements still feel better. So allow yourself to take things in bite-sized chunks. Okay, so we're going to sign off here because it's been an hour and I don't want to keep you guys here forever. This has been Logical Magic, examining esoterica, trying to master executive functioning. If you get your poop in a group, you can fertilize your fields and harvest your crops. It'll all be fantastic. You can find me at therisingmoon.com to book me for a tarot card reading or a life coaching session. I do say that so automatically now, I probably mumble it in my sleep. You can also find me at Chromecast at the Rising Moon, which is my YouTube channel, which is where the video versions of this will always be. And I have a Patreon that all of that will be linked in the episode notes or the description box down below. And Jacob, you are currently in flux, and the next time you're back, you'll give me all your tags, right? But for right now, you can stick with
Correct.
Southern Style Readings on Facebook, and you can also stick with SouthernStyleReadings at gmail.com, with updates incoming as he restructures his life in small bite-sized chunks. This has been Logical Magic, examining esoterica. Thank you so much for joining us.